is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire. With me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. I swear it's oregano that's growing in his garden, Stu Horvath.
Wait, what?
It's a topical joke because we have Anthony Meloro here from Mystic Punks to talk about the Mystic Punks tabletop role-playing game Kickstarter that is launching on Kickstarter on March 20th. How you doing today, Anthony?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on, Stu and Hambone.
I have to say, before we get into business, that I've long been a proponent of the zine scene in role-playing games. I think that's where all the good stuff comes from, and I think that it's going to carry role-playing games forward. And I bring this up because I believe that Mystic Punks, a whole pile of Mystic Punks zines, were the very first zines that I bought relating to role-playing games back in the day, when it was like, email this, you send an email to this address, make a PayPal payment, and then you get a whole bunch of awesome like Dayglow paper in the mail.
I'm so underground, right?
Yeah, you're clearly recording in a bunker.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was. I was promoting it on, check it out, like Google Plus for a while. That's where I was really beginning to get a lot of traction.
Yeah, I missed the whole Google Plus days, but like I guess I got you right at the end of it. As it was shutting down. So it's like the first 3 or 4 Mystic Punks, and then what is it, White Fever downtown
North City Park.
Yeah.
That was when co-creator Jay Domingo stepped in, and I've known Jay for 20 plus years. We went to school together, and unbeknownst to me, he was down in the Atlanta area running tons of D&D, and he's like, "You're doing RPGs?" And I was like, "I am now." So, and he said, "Can I get it?" And he said, "I want to write this." After he saw Mystic Punks, he's like, "I want to do one." And he's like, "Yeah, write an adventure, man." Yeah, so he did North City Park, and then it took off from there. And
Sweet.
he's been doing such a great job on all the mechanics, like all that. Yeah.
And Stu got that. Stu didn't get that aftermarket. Like, we end up getting a lot of stuff. He got that back in the halcyon days of Google Plus. Like, how many years ago was that?
That was okay. So the original Mystic Punks #1, out of print. just to give me more credit on that was 2016.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's always been a labor of love, especially back then. It was like you said, Stu, quick and dirty, like Dayglow paper, using office resources for printing.
Office supplies go missing all the time. It's just
Allegedly.
what happens to them.
Allegedly.
Yeah, I don't know where they go. Yeah, and I would hand staple it, but I also come from, prior to that, from my indie comics days, like working cons, like, so doing zines as well. And my RPG roots go back to the 80s, doing like I'm a little bit on the later scale of Gen X, but I had the red box, like I grew the D&D red box. I had some of the 2E stuff, and then I had my small little playing group. But I mean, it wasn't until I saw in what was it, 90, Vampire the Masquerade, and then I busted out that blousey shirt and I was in.
Yeah, you did.
But I did from that a bit, and then I was, like, later always a comics reader, but after art school and doing all this other stuff, like I was doing like more in my late 20s and 30s, more of the indie comic scene. And I always wanted to keep in the zine, like that DIY community, that a wing and a prayer type of ethos to it. It's like, I think that's where it is, and the community that it builds as well too is, I think, super important. And yeah, it's nothing but love, right? That's where it is.
So speaking about love, why don't you tell our listeners We've been yammering on about like random stuff up to this point. For those who may not know, what is Mystic Punks?
Yeah, so Mystic Punks in its iteration right now. So started out as Stu said, solo RPG zines, and then my publisher Exalted Funeral was awesome enough to distro them and then said like, hey, we want to collect all of these and publish these, and then it went into a collected edition of the solo of the solo RPG, and then it went to from there we wanted to do tabletop, and then this is where again Jay Domingo comes into play, and Jay's like, Anthony, love you, but your rules are a hot mess. So he's like,
Tell me how you really feel.
I was like, I don't think, okay, fine. Yeah, so I'm like the flavor guy, the lore guy, and Jay's a great audience because things that I would say is like, how does this work? He's like, give me more. Yes, more trash. Keep it coming on. And he would do the and he would be awesome, like I said, with all the game mechanics and the play. And it went from that solo play to the tabletop play where I think it's about 2.5 years now. We released through Exalted again the quick start rules for the tabletop. From there we had 3 adventures. Trial at Wendard's was the first one. Sally Cantorino, amazing cover for that, did amazing artwork for that. And they also did for Crypt as well. That was another adventure we had, and this has all been leading to now we've updated, we've revamped some of those quick start rules and just really made it the core rule book, which is going to be dropped like Hambone said on Kickstarter opens on 3/20. It's a complete thing. And yeah, we couldn't be more proud. We have such amazing people working on it, and yeah, it really humbles me all around.
So just to segue before we spoil the surprise, I was really excited to hear the word on the street that Benjamin Marra is contributing a little bit of art to the project. How is it working with Ben?
Ben's amazing. I've had the pleasure of knowing Ben since 2011. So speaking of my indie comics days, we were seated next to each other at Brooklyn Comics and Graphics Festival, which I think is called CAB now. And we just immediately hit it off. And so we've been just, every few years or less than we'll be chatting with one another. And when I was working on Mystic Punks, I was like, oh God, yes, this has been all over it.
Your kindred spirits, the energies coming off of both Mystic Punks and like all of his comics, it's the same. As far as I'm concerned, it's a perfect marriage. I was so happy to see his strips in the galley that you sent over.
Yeah, it's so awesome to see the direction that his work's taking in. Like he's done his, like a lot of the work that he's done before for us for the quick start is absolutely in that comic vein of like, say, Night Business or Amwat Terror Assaulter. All great comics, all great, amazing comics. But yeah, the comic that he's contributed, he's done before I even go to that, he's done the cover for. He's done the cover. Sweet. As well. Yeah, I'll share that with y'all. But the comic that he's doing, that he did for us for the core rulebook, is in his current style of What We Mean by Yesterday.
That comic is so good.
No, it's so good. It's so good. It's like it's the best comic going out right now, I think. In like, I want it in a newspaper.
Yeah,
like it's like the new Nancy, right?
Right.
Could you imagine that being in a newspaper? Jesus.
Right next to Heathcliff.
right. Oh, looks like look at someone's doing animal crackers again. Oh, okay.
I want to live in that parallel world. Jeez.
Oh my God, right?
What made you want to move it from a solo game to, a more traditional tabletop? Because it works really well as a solo game, I think. I played through the entirety of the collected book, and it was like really gratifying and satisfying as a solo experience.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. I definitely hear a lot of people are like, it's so hard, but I'm like, yeah, man. So
That's
it's
a solo
hardcore.
game, man.
That's a solo game. That's a solo game. Once again, Jay Domingo, Jay's like, you have to bring this into tabletop world. And I mean, I'm definitely, as you can tell, pretty gregarious, but there's a little bit of an introvert in me, and it's like, I don't know. Like, should it be with
Will
people?
like it?
Yeah, will people like it? I don't know. So no, through his prodding, his gentle pushing, it really took it off to that. So yeah, that was, I would say, the big catalyst would be Jay.
Yeah, I mean, my first experience with it was meeting you guys at GaryCon when she's like, "Oh, you want the Quick Start Guide?" And it handed me like this gigantic magazine, and I was like, "That." And I'm like, "A Quick Start Guide," and I'm flipping through the pages. Like, for those who may not be familiar with the Mystics Punk Quick Start Guide, it's friggin' huge. It is like a $20 book on its own that you would just be like, "Oh, they're giving this to me? Like, what the hell is this?" But it is something that will immediately help you get immersed in the world of Mystic Punks. Like you'll open it up and it's evocative from cover to cover. Like you know who you're hanging out with when you're reading through the book, and you're like, oh, it's like, it's like hanging out with an old buddy in like someone's basement, going like, you think that's funny? Check this out, and like, let me show you this weird stuff. Like, hey kids, do you want to go see a dead body? Like, that to me, like, it was my real first experience, just kind of enjoying that and really kind of seeing what was possible, and my thought was, like, my main takeaway was like, how is this not like a multiplayer tabletop RPG? Like, I get the whole solo play thing for sure, but man, I was like, it's going to be so much more fun when you're sitting around with some buddies.
Yeah, and that's so yeah, it's 68 pages. It's a beast. It's
right
for and with its own adventure too. Yeah, Jay and I lovingly call it like get out a copy of the Highlight magazine, because it's like the whole Highlight.
Yeah.
It's like so big. But the magic really clicked for me when when I would go to cons and I would see people playing this, or Jay running a game, or even at the last Gary Con, a fan just running it on their own, and it's like, yes, we're doing it. It's like, this is, and the community like that made, and and when people were playing it, and it's fun to talk about, like, what does punk mean? It's because it's like, I don't, like, Jay and I are pretty firm in, like, punk to us is means like an outsider. Like, it's not like, you could definitely create the punk that has the tropes of like, okay, you have the mohawk, you have the I don't know, the earring or whatever.
Yeah, you overpaid for your bondage pants and trash and vaudeville. Got it.
yeah, right,
exactly. Mom's credit card.
Yeah, exactly. But it for us, it's like, like, play it as just as a weirdo. Like, I've played it as, it's actually one of the characters on the Quick Start cover. Nathan Tersteeg, amazing artist. He's also with us for the core rulebook. He did the Quick Start cover. One of the characters I created, he put in there, was Mr. Sterno. He has like the metal mask on and the janitor's overall. He's a high school custodian that, just has burn marks on his face, so he sort of wears this sort of like MF Doom mask over it. So it's like, yeah, play it as like the disgruntled middle-aged person. So, or like you or be the mall goth, the mall teen goth. That's fine, whatever. It's like, we're not going to say no to it. We're not gonna just limit that character creation to be like, to fit like whatever quote unquote archetype that punk would be. We want it to be open.
Well, I think the thing with RPGs, and I feel like this is kind of a broad stroke statement, but I'm going to stand by it, and that's, no matter how big conventional Dungeons and Dragons gets, people who play RPGs will always be outsiders to a degree. It's not, it will never be, even with Stranger Things, taking it into that place where, like, your dad's like, oh, I was watching The Big Bang Theory. That show's kind of funny. I guess I kind of understand your thing better. Like, you're not saying that my dad sounds like that. He also has a mustache, but I digress. like I think that there'll always be that kind of like outlaw spirit to it, that kind of real outsiderness to it, but in a way where it's still welcoming to bring other outsiders together and do the thing, you know. So, and I think there, to me, there's nothing more punk rock than that. A bunch of weirdos hanging out together, you know, in harmony.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more, Hambo. And it's having fun with those type of stories as well too, because I don't know about y'all, but like I can't necessarily do serious role playing, not knocking it at all, but like if we're doing
Yeah.
political intrigue, it's gonna be a circus. Like it's gonna be like it's like let's really get into the espionage. It's like it's like this is
Yeah.
just not gonna happen at all.
Best
So,
case scenario, it's Get Smart. You know,
yeah, right, exactly, right. Yeah.
I've been running Call of Cthulhu for Unwinnable folks since the pandemic started in
Mm.
2020. So we're in our 4th year. We're like halfway through Masks of Nyarlathotep, but it's like sometimes it's heavy, but most of the time it's just stupid. It's just the
Awesome.
dumbest shit. And and that's the point. And it doesn't, like, no matter how hard you try, I feel like the baseline of any given tabletop table is always gonna be like reduced to laughs at some point, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's again, I think like that's the magic.
Yeah.
That's the storytelling magic and how you're weaving everyone's account into one another and how they're giving and they're vibing off one another and they're giving you that energy and they're coming with you like, you know, we're called dark guides who run it.
great name.
I want those players to deviate like from like, oh, you're hitting me with this. It's like amazing. Now I have to really think like, what the hell am I gonna do next? And like, yes, more. But yeah, Stu, absolutely. It's that's where it's at.
I just want to chime in on Hambone's or just the broader conversation about punk, but like I've been fascinated with the fact that like the founders of the hobby were all just like hopeless nerds. But like there's something about the stuff that those hopeless nerds created that spoke to people who had more like punk rock sensibilities, and that it leaked in. And then like you mentioned Vampire the Masquerade earlier, and it's just like
Mhm.
like that was like such a huge gateway for like all the punk rock stuff and the goth stuff and the metal and like all the you know, the alternate subculture stuff to get in there. And like now it's just like it's second nature, like the constant conversation about what like the, you know, word punk means in any given context. Everybody kind of knows it. It's like reflexive at this point.
I mean,
Oh,
dude, like
sure.
I just did a panel with Mark Hagen at Level Up, right? And I say this with all the love in the world. That dude does not look like he plays Vampire the Masquerade. And I think that is the coolest thing about him. You know? Like there's something so magical about it. Mind you, like I didn't even get to like ask him half the things I wanted to ask him, but like every time he opened his mouth, it was just gold. Like just
Awesome.
whatever he said in this panel was just gold. But like, I mean, I think that to piggyback on what Stu was saying, like to the broader conversation, I mean, that is the most punk rock part about what we do in this hobby is that like whether you're walking around with a bunch of tattoos and a battle vest or whether, you know, you look like you may have had a really nice run off the LL Bean catalog, like we're all sitting at the same table together, you know? And the thing is, we are all cool. Like no one's cool, but we're all cool. Like we're all vibing. We're all on the same page. We're all on the same level, man. It's fucking beautiful.
I love how this hobby has morphed from where it was when me growing up in Ohio in the 80s was like nerd was a dirty word,
Mhm.
Oh
right?
yeah.
It's like you're an outcast, you're an outsider, which to a certain extent, you know, those formative years can be hurtful. I'm not crying, by the way. I'm fine. I'm
Okay. You ever listen to the show before? I've definitely wept
No,
openly. It's you're a good company. And I'm a sympathetic crier.
yeah.
Anthony. Don't
Here
you
we go.
start.
Here we go. Here we go. No, it's and to see where it is now and I work with students. I work at a university, and we're role and like, we'll talk about pop culture, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk what the kids are up to. And just to see their love and acceptance of all things nerd. And I know this has been going on for a while, but like especially where it's been with RPGs, and that acceptance and that inclusivity is, I think, so amazing to see. Where, and I know there's like there's dudes out there that it's like, holy shit, it's like, I'm in my 40s, I'm going to be super protective, this is my hobby, and and these kids are like going all on. It's like, oh, get over yourself, man.
Yeah.
This is what we wanted. This
Yeah.
is to like everyone in the same pool loving it. It's like, come on, man. Like, this, don't safeguard, don't gatekeep, like let it all in. And I know sometimes, like, even with the concept of punk, like that can be a little bit of an oxymoron, but no, at the end of the day, this is about everyone having fun and everyone getting along, for sure.
Well, I love the fact that we've been talking about punk, and punk in the context of Mystic Punks is sort of anything. It's a wide, diverse array of possibilities for the characters that you mentioned, and it's the mystic that's sort of the part that, like, that's the weird stuff that brings everybody together. That's like the leveler that everybody has in common. And your brand of it's gross. you do gross really well in a way that I really appreciate. I can't do gross like that. It's like this effortless gross. There's so much in that first, but I don't want to dwell too much on the collected, because we're talking about the new thing, but there's so much good gnarly shit that goes down in those books, and it's like everything that people were worried about when they freaked out about fighting fantasy back in the 80s, but it wasn't actually there. It's like it's in Mystic Punks, and I love it.
I picked up last year House of Hell because I really wanted to have it, and I was like, oh, this is more annoying than it is scary. But it does have that really gnarly picture of the girl about to get sacrificed.
Oh yeah, the art in them is over the top.
Fantastic. So no, thank you for that compliment about gross. I mean, I am nothing without my trash movie influences. My and that goes from that, the horror, the splatter gore is definitely there, but I'm absolutely a trash aficionado when it comes to B movies and cult films, for sure.
Just any of it, all of it, just heap it on.
Oh, well, yeah, I have an actual super love of, like, let's get niche, guys. Let's get weird. Of Dan Haggerty's mid-film career of the 90s, which I will talk about at length. Put me on for another podcast. I'll be more than happy to talk about Dan Haggerty and his amazing films when it was like going a little bit more downhill.
Throw some titles at me.
Elves.
Oh
yeah. Oh
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you seen that Christmas? that Christmas one? Like, that's amazing. Oh, what's another one? Repo Jake. He's a
I don't
repo.
think I've seen that one.
Do yourself a favor. Like, you do Elves and Repo Jake.
I don't think I can do Elves and anything else that night. I think after I watch Elves, I'm knackered. It's just like, I gotta go to bed. Feel hungover in the middle of the day.
I hear you. Yeah, it's quite a treat. But yes, yeah, I'm a big fan of all that, the B movie stuff, and yeah, I'm constantly digging, like crate digging for like weird trash all the time.
We're gonna go home on this episode now, this double size, not lazy recording at all episode of the Vintage RPG podcast. Stu, where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me on Instagram. They know where. Come on. It's been years. If you don't know yet, you're never gonna know. You don't care. You don't care about me if you don't know.
Oh man.
Yeah, Anthony doesn't know. That's the look of a man who doesn't know.
Oh, I'm on Instagram at Vintage RPG, Anthony.
Yeah, I absolutely. I was taken aback by that a little bit.
You can find me across the internet at John McGuire RPG. I'm posting more on Instagram these days because I'm going out, I'm going places, I'm doing things. By the time this episode drops, I will be at GaryCon. So if you're in GaryCon, come look for your old buddy HP. I'll be on the con floor. I'm doing 4 panels on writing, which I will be announcing on Instagram, which I'm posting on more because I'm leaving the house. Also, if you hear this episode and you have not yet, go to Kickstarter, Run, Don't Walk, back Mystic Punk's tabletop role-playing game. We talk a lot about games on this show with a lot of cool creators, and this is going to be one of the must-buys for 2024. So Mystic Punk's tabletop role-playing game. When you hear the first half of this episode, save it and follow it on Kickstarter. When you hear the second half of this episode, please back it up. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. And if you really like the show, want to become a patron? Patreon.com/vintagerpg. We got a behind-the-scenes look at whatever Stu's working on. We got a behind-the-scenes look at the stuff that I'm working on for 321 Action, which is getting weird. We have early release episodes for as little as $1 a month. They'll drop at some point on Friday, depending on when we record them in the week. We have a tier where you can play RPGs with me. We've got a tier where you can play West Marches with Stu. And we've got a killer Discord community that we'd love for you all to be a part of. Patreon.com/vintagerpg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dego West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.